1 second, everyone. Forgot to bring a microphone. Knew I was forgetting something. Hello. Hello, world. If you're here, let me know. Please let me know if you're here on all the various platforms. That way I know if the chat aggregator is working. Probably won't, but hey, that's okay. Good morning, good morning. All right, we have the chat aggregator up and running. With any luck, it will work. If it doesn't, I'm going to actually try to get on the various programs to see if we can talk to you all. All right. Everything looks good. Welcome to everyone. We're good on YouTube. Excellent. Thank you for letting me know. We're always good on Instagram because we're using our phone for Instagram. Technology is amazing. It's very important to realize, even when things are not going quite as well as you'd like them to, especially with technology, that just a few years ago, your phone couldn't do much of anything. It's fun to think about how far we've come. Now, I can talk to all of you live. So good. Thank you very much for being here. Now it's Chris says, we want James. James is not here right now because James is eating his breakfast. James is also sick. Makes me feel sad. My poor baby man is sick. But that's okay. Let's make sure this thing got reposted to Twitter. With any luck, it did. It did. That's a mild miracle. Looks like I still can't see their viewers, though. Oh, view on Periscope with hearts and chats. Hearts and chats. Is that what we live for nowadays? We live for hearts and chats. I'm going to just type test and see if it goes to my chat aggregator. That would be so nice if it did. Looks like it did not. But that's okay. You can't always get what you want. Anyway, yeah, technology. Think about your phone, right? Just 10 years ago, you could not use your phone for much of anything. It was essentially useless. And now, your phone can let you talk to millions of people. It can let you buy and sell things. If you have a smartphone and you're not doing so well in life, understand that your phone gives you the full potential to pretty much do whatever you want. You can learn most skills. You can, you can buy and sell things, right? And if you buy and sell things, well, that's an easy way to accumulate wealth, assuming you do it in an intelligent manner. You can provide value to people, right? Like my job, talking to you all, helping people with poker, would not really exist like it does just 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I remember when I made my first training site, SNG Icons, back in the day. It was the coolest thing. Because we can let other people see me playing poker. Looks like Facebook's not working as well. Let me just go to Facebook real quick and try to get that up and running. Uh-oh. Instagram's paused due to poor connection. I don't like that. We don't need a poor connection. Instagram people, let me know if the connection is poor. I certainly don't want a poor connection. I'm not sure how to even locate this live stream. Forgive me if I'm sweaty. I just got back from the gym. Speaking of life balance, it looks like it's not streaming to Facebook. Oh well. Speaking of life balance, it's rather difficult for me to... Alright, so Chip says it's lagging. Alright, so we're going to try to get on the different Wi-Fi. Give me just 1 second. Sorry to everyone who's having to put up with my technical issues. We will have them fixed shortly, as you all know. First minute or two is usually pretty rough. Alright, we're on a new Wi-Fi for Instagram. With any luck, it'll be better. Alright, so I had a few things I want to talk about today. Here's the first one. It just came in on Twitter. Someone was complaining to me about getting outdrawn. And what this person was essentially saying is that I don't like playing No Limit Hold'em because I don't like it when people outdraw me. That was the first tweet, okay? And then I reply, you understand, they say they like limit hold'em more than no limit because you don't get outdrawn as much. And that's just factually untrue. So if you think about it, in limit hold'em, you see all 5 cards pretty much every time, right? And when you see all 5 cards, that means that there are more opportunities for the worse hand to get there. Whereas in no limit hold'em, say I raise pre-flop and my opponent calls and they have 9-8 and the board comes ace king 4, they're obviously check folding. They're going to check fold limit hold'em too. Let's say instead they have I don't know, bottom pair, right? Ace king 4, they have 4-3. And no limit hold'em, I bet the flop. They may just fold right off the bat. Or they may call the flop, but then fold to a turn bet, right? In limit hold'em, though, they're going to call the flop and they're going to call the turn because they're getting such good pot odds, which means that you're going to get outdrawn more often in limit hold'em. A lot of people seem to just have factually untrue thoughts in their mind. It's like they're not thinking about the math. Next, this person then said, in limit hold'em, though, when I get outdrawn, it doesn't cost me as much money, which is not the same point they were saying in the first tweet. A lot of people get it in their minds that they have a story, but they do not express their story well. You have to make sure you're expressing your story well. It's hard to do. It's very, very hard to express your story well. Instagram. If Instagram is not working, let me know. If you're watching on YouTube or any of the other platforms, let me know if it's working there too. Whenever you do get outdrawn, how should you feel? Right? You should feel fine. Because why? Why should you feel fine after getting outdrawn and losing money? And the answer is because the bad players presumably got their money in poorly, and they are getting rewarded for their poor play, right? So if they're getting rewarded for their poor play, what is that going to do? That's going to incentivize them to keep playing. You want the bad players playing as often as they can, and you want them getting lucky against you or anybody else. It doesn't make a difference, as much as they realistically can, because that's going to make them feel good. You want the bad players who are losing money to you to feel good. And if they are constantly getting crushed because you get it all in good and you beat them every time, they're not going to play, they're not going to feel good. This is why casinos don't get mad when someone hits their number on roulette. You know, they're 1 in 37 or 38 or whatever it is, and they get paid 35 to 1. They can hit it 100 times, the casino doesn't care, because they know on average they're going to lose. A lot of people care way too much about the short run. It seems like a lot of people's issues, at least the issues they get sent to me, are all people who care way too much about what's happening right this second, right? And what happens right this second is actually fairly irrelevant. But a lot of people don't view it that way. They think what's happening now is the only thing that matters. And it's important to understand that that is not the case. When you are playing any sort of gambling game, any sort of game that relies on lots of samples to actually know things, what happens this time is completely irrelevant. So, this player who sent in this question, I can tell you a few things. Almost certainly, he's not actually played a lot of hands. He later confirmed this by saying, I've lost 15 hands in a row as the favorite. We have to understand also, a lot of people think I'm a favorite when I'm 52%. I mean, get real, right? You're a favorite in my mind when you're like 90%. That's when you actually may start to feel a little bit annoyed when you lose. So, you're not 90% very often. And even if you are, sometimes you're going to lose 15 in a row. If you're counting these things, though, I would say that you just simply are not thinking about the right things. I know when I was a young, dumb kid, I lost with aces 24 times in a row. And I thought, man, what the hell? I never thought the site was rigged or that the game was unbeatable or anything. I just thought, man, I'm being unlucky as hell. And this was me as like a stupid 18-year-old kid, right? I didn't know anything. And maybe I'm lucky that my initial thought process was not, I'm being cheated, or this game is rigged, or I'm not going to play No Limit Hold'em anymore. It was, this is a hell of a bad run. And I think that's what you have to think. You shouldn't, you just can't care. If you care a lot about these types of things, you're going to have huge emotional attachments to money and to the game, and it's not going to work out well for you. Jolly Jumper makes a good statement. You feel bad when you get outdrawn when you play very little. It's true. If it happens all the time, you don't care. What's a good trick to stay sane after getting outdrawn 10 times? Realize you're going to get outdrawn 10 times. It happens. It's normal. It doesn't matter. More talk about poker and less talk about technology. Well, you don't have to watch the show. We're going to talk about whatever I want to talk about. This is my show. You all lead me there. All right. Getting outdrawn is what makes the game profitable. Very, very, very true. What stake is closest to 1-2 live online? 10 cent, 25 cents. Getting outdrawn is fine. Exactly. A lot of people just, they care way too much. How can you pay off people less when they do outdraw you? That's actually a very good question and something that's very relevant. A lot of people in No Limit Hold'em, what they do is they'll raise with aces, they'll get 7 callers, and then inevitably think, man, when I got outdrawn, I got stacked, right? But whenever you get outdrawn in this instance, usually the flop's going to come, let's say 9-8-3. If you bet and someone calls and someone raises, fold. People aren't bluffing you very often in small stakes, No Limit Hold'em games. In higher stakes, you do have to be a little bit more aware that people will raise Jack 10 on 9-8-3 sometimes, or 10-7, whatever the other draws are. So you have to be more willing to pay off good players. But against weak players, they're just not going to bluff you that often. Someone's going to show you 9-8, or pocket 9s, or pocket 8s, or whatever the other bottom card is set a lot. And, occasionally you're going to make a bad fold. And that's what people remember. They remember when they make the bad folds. But you need to be maximally exploiting your bad opponents. And even your okay opponents, right? You don't need to say, well, they could be bluffing me, therefore I need to pay them off every time. So, how do you not pay them off? You understand their range is often strong. And now there are times where you just have to pay the guy off, right? Say you someone raises, you 3-bet them and they call, and the flop comes 9-4-2, and they like check raise and you get it all in for 100 big blinds. It's probably fine to get in with aces on 9-4-2. Yes, they're going to show you sets sometimes, but they're also going to show you kings, queens, jacks, 10s, maybe ace-9, maybe 9-8, maybe some ridiculous bluff, who knows. So there are times where you just have to pay, and it's never fun to just have to pay. But it happens. Someone says, what are we talking about today? Is it poker or magic? Right now we're talking about poker. Matthew says, man, I wake up early. I have a child. Child wakes up at 6:30 a.m. I typically wake up at about 6:15. Let's see. D. Nelson's daughter was sick yesterday. Bad beat. My son is sick. Maybe your daughter gave it to me. Are pros making money online in the USA? This is another question I'm asked a lot. I should probably just write a blog post about this. Certainly people are making money playing poker on the internet. That's not really a question. There are definitely winners. Win rates have gone down recently, although I hear that on the American sites quite often they are very, very soft because a lot of, I don't know the right word. I guess a lot of risk-averse people don't even want to be involved with it. Like, right, I don't have any money on the American sites because I just don't want to be involved with it. I don't need to deal with the hassle. I don't want to have to worry about getting my money converted to some various currency to put it in. I don't want to have to worry about them paying me out the last time. I don't have to worry about the sites not being regulated, right? I just don't need this in my life. And I'm in a unique spot because I don't have to play poker, right? If I had nothing going on the business side of things, then I probably would have to do these things, or I would not live in America. But yes, certainly people are making money. There are many pros who talk about playing on the various sites in America, and they do well. What do you think about limit poker? I used to play Limit Hold'em professionally. I played it that's how I grew my bankroll. I started at $50, grew it up to about 20,000, give or take. It took me about 6 months of hard grinding. I say hard grinding. I was working a job and going to college at the same time, so how hard could it really been, right? I was probably playing like 6 hours a day. So part-time grinding. And Limit Hold'em's great. At least it was great. Now Limit Hold'em has been solved. You're going to find that as games give you fewer decisions, you can solve them easier. No Limit Hold'em has way, way, way more decisions than Limit Hold'em, because in Limit Hold'em you only have a few bet sizes, right? You can either check, you can bet, sometimes you can raise. And whenever someone bets, you can either fold, call, or raise. That's it. 3 options. When you only have 3 options, games become much easier. And now there are bots that can just beat Limit Hold'em. I would generally tell you not to play games, or not to invest significant time learning a game, where the game is easily solvable. And that is Limit Hold'em. Do I play chess? I played chess as a kid. I used to play chess with my dad. Just the first game I actually really played. I say really played. I never played a chess tournament. I used to play on, I think it was called Pogo.com a long time ago. I would wake up early in the mornings and play speed chess. My rating was like 1900 in speed chess a long time ago. But I tried playing chess with friends like 4 or 5 years ago, and I so don't have the patience for it. I think online poker has ruined my brain. No Limit Hold'em has not been solved by Snowy, for example. No, Poker Snowy just is not a solver. Poker Snowy has learned how to play very well against itself, and that's it. Poker Snowy does not claim to have solved poker. I'm working on a book with Michael Acevedo, a very good game theory expert and a great poker player, and he has solved most spots using a program called Munker Solver. And it's like PioSolver, except for it allows you to solve for multi-way situations. So clearly, even then, though, you can only solve for specific stack sizes. Like poker, if you're solving it, you have to know how to play with 21 big blind stacks, 22 big blind stacks, 28 big blind stacks, etc. Whereas if you're really going about this in a logical way, you solve like 20 big blind, 25 big blind, 30 big blind, 40 big blind, 50 big blind, etc. So even then you're missing some things, so you have to extrapolate. You learn how to play in most common situations, and then you extrapolate from there to other similar situations. If you had to start over playing poker, what would you play? Depends on if I have a bankroll already or not. If I have $50 again, like I did when I was 18, what would I do? I'd probably just play sit and goes. Sit and goes are a very easy way to get in a lot of volume. And volume will allow you to grow a bankroll. You may not be able to get in quite as much volume in sit and goes nowadays as you used to. Like a long time ago when I was playing $200 games, you can get in 16 of them in 20 minutes. It wasn't even a problem. But you can play very tiny stakes, like $1 buy-ins, and they will teach you how to play final tables, right? So you learn skills that will help you in the future if you do decide to transition to tournaments. So I think that's a reasonable way to go about it, at least. Am I invested in cryptocurrencies? It's kind of foolish to tell someone if you're invested in cryptocurrencies. Are spin and go solved? I don't know. I am not a professional spin and go player. I have played some spin and goes. So funny enough, a lot of people think, oh man, I haven't been lucky in my spins. And I've probably played, I don't know, $1,500 spin and goes, and I'm roughly break even down a little bit, but I've never had a big spin, right? Oh, baby's crying. Baby's sick today. We may have to go comfort him for just a second if he's going to scream his head off like this. But I've never had a big spin, so you're not going to win. When you don't have a big spin in spin and goes, you're not going to win. If you look at the graph of the spin and go player, it's very much like a tournament player. Ben says, what is a spin and go? Okay, it's a three-handed turbo sit and go. Hyper turbo sit and go. Very, very fast. They start you with, I think, 20 big blinds or 25 big blinds. So then what happens is there's a slot machine reel, essentially, and it tells you what you're playing for. You're either playing for 2 buy-ins. Remember, 3 buy-ins go in. You're playing for 2 buy-ins, which is when you're unlucky, right? You're putting in 3 total. Everyone's putting in 1 each. You get back 2. Or you win 4 buy-ins, in which case you're getting a bonus buy-in. Sometimes you get 6, sometimes you get 8, sometimes you get 1,000, right? I think in the $500 sit and goes, you can occasionally play for $1 million. I don't even know how many buy-ins that is, 200 or 2,000 or something. It's a lot. So sometimes you're playing for infinite money, and that's great. And sometimes they don't have gigantic rakes. Sometimes they do. It depends on the site. But the question is, are they solved? Is 20 big blind, 3-handed poker solved? And I would definitely say yes. Do I know all the answers? No. But I bet there are people out there who do, and you don't want to play with them unless you're trying to give away your money. When I first started, the $50 was on multi-tabling. I played one table initially like everyone does, but I quickly figured out that I needed to play more tables. Just common sense, right? I'm sitting there doing nothing, right? When you're sitting there one tabling, you're doing nothing almost all the time. So I quickly got to 4 tables. I remember going to work. I worked at an airport, and I would purposely work the graveyard shift because during the graveyard shift, no airplanes came in at night very often. So I would do my chores. The graveyard guy had to do some various chores. It took an hour or two, and then he just kind of hung out in case something happened. And I would load up Party Poker on the company computer, and I would 4-table Limit Hold'em. Eventually, I got up to where I was playing 30-60. Then I moved over to Sit and Goes, and Sit and Goes didn't work so well for a job because Sit and Goes last 45 minutes. At least they used to last 45 minutes. And sometimes an airplane would come in, and you'd have to muck your Sit and Goes or make them wait. I would normally make them wait, unless it was called a life flight helicopter, where they're presumably coming or going to pick up someone who has been in an accident. I wouldn't make them wait. And 1 week, they came in twice, like back-to-back days, or twice in 3 days, and it cost me $800 both times. So I lost $1,600, getting paid $10 an hour to work at this job. So that's it. When you first started playing, oh wait, that was the same question. You're playing on the Chinese app that don't allow you to replay. How do you know if you're just unlucky or if you are playing poorly? It's hard to know. If they don't give you data, you don't know. Oh, well, all your friends say that's the type of job you should work, so you can play while you work. I mean, yeah, it's... Free time is a good idea. Dr. Pepper Drink says, you either think crypto is a waste of money/time, and you don't believe in technology, or you think the technology is good and maybe you buy some. It's not like some top secret thing. It's very important to not let people know where your money is because they can rob you. This is just good common sense. Everyone out there who is essentially saying, hey guys, I have lots of money that's probably not all that secure, is an idiot. Some people say you can say what percentage of the coins you have. Sure, that presumes you have some though, and if you have some money, presumably you have a lot. If you've been in it for a while, you probably have a lot. It's just not smart to talk about such things. It'd be like saying, yeah, in my house safe, I keep $100 million in cash. Is that smart? The house is really secure. We have doormans and security guards. Is it smart to say that I have $1 million in cash in the safe? I don't have $1 million in the cash in the safe. Don't come rob me. But would that be smart to say? No, it would be really, really, really dumb. But technology takes over the world. If you all follow me on Instagram, I just posted a post that said something effective. Technology is, I forget exactly what it is. Something effective technology is what matters and your opinion does not. Technology prevails over time. It always has and likely always will. Adoption is an interesting question because some things do not get adopted, right? Like electric cars. They've been trying to make electric cars for ages, and they're just now finally starting to get accepted. So why did it take so long? People are slow to adopt. I think one thing a lot of people don't quite get about cryptocurrencies is that we're still very, very early in their existence, right? If you look at the internet took 25 years before it became very, very accepted, right? A lot of people thought, who would want to get on the internet to buy things? Why would you not just go to the store, right? And a lot of people think that cryptocurrencies are all of a sudden going to blow up and take over the world, and I think they're going to find that it's going to be more of a thing like AI and virtual reality, right? If you look at virtual reality, it's still not good, right? It's okay, but if you play it, it's just not right. And they've been trying to make it for years, right? Everyone who's made investments in virtual reality has gotten slaughtered, just absolutely slaughtered. And eventually, a company will make it, and it will be fantastic, and it will be amazing, and whoever invests in that will get rich. But all the companies that first started, they're long gone. So keep that in mind. Grumpy One says, I have $1 million in my safe, in my house, in a gun-free zone. Not necessarily the best information to provide. That's right. And a lot of people have $1 million on their little ledger, and they think, yeah, I'm just going to say I have $1 million on my ledger, sitting right here next on my desk. It's not. Don't come rob me. Do you believe in voting? I don't really talk about politics, but I have not voted for various reasons, most of them due to time. Do I still do the home game on Stars? I do, but I don't play it very often. Sorry about that. Life has gotten hectic, and I have not been able to find 3 hours to sit down each week to do a home game. Poker's changed a lot in the early 2000s, so do you still think there will be strategy changes in the near future? I think people are going to play closer and closer to GTO until most people play GTO, and if you don't play GTO, you're going to get demolished. That's what happens with all games. How do you feel about poker players using the term running bad to justify their bad results instead of looking at what they're doing wrong? I think if you're smart, you are always looking for what you do wrong, and you can observe, right? You can realize, okay, I have been running poorly, but maybe I played poorly in some spots. Like, say you play a tournament, you get to second in chips, and then you get on with aces against the big stacks, ace-5 suited, and you lose. you probably played a pretty good tournament. And there's nothing you can do about it. You did run poorly. If that happens 10 times in a row, you're probably running poorly. And that's A-okay. Is there a way to build a thought process that facilitates hand reading? Or is that just something you have to practice with? You have to practice, but you can do it away from the table. That's what I teach at pokercoaching.com. We have lots and lots of quizzes and also lots of homework questions. It teaches you how to build ranges. Best hot dog stand in New York City. I have never eaten a hot dog in New York City. Do I live close to Central Park? Central Park is about a 20-minute walk away. We go there on the weekends with James. We go to the petting zoo. If you buy a membership to the park, it's something like $60 a year. So if you go to the park with 2 people more than 3 times, you immediately profit. So I've been there many times. You still answer questions on Float the Turn forum. That's now the Poker Coaching Forum, William. And no, I do not answer too many questions on there. It's another thing. It's another issue of time. I have a lot going on. I probably should spend some time answering them. But apparently I'm lazy. What is the optimal strategy for anonymous turbo speed games? Figure out the tendencies of the player pool and adjust GTO slightly to take advantage of those. It's not free to go to the park. It's not free to go to the zoo. It is free to go to the park, but to go into the zoo, you have to pay. One time, I jogged 4 times around Central Park. It's about a 6-mile loop. I was running the marathon. Where is it? Here is a medal. You can barely see it if you're on Instagram. You can't see it if you're on the other one. Sorry. I got a medal for running the New York City Marathon. Actually, I got retroactively given it because they canceled the marathon due to Hurricane Sandy, but Amy and I still went out there to run anyway. And we ran the course. Well, we ran around the park 4 times. It was not particularly fun, and I'm never running another marathon. What are the beaches like over there? Not so nice, at least the one I've been to. One time I went to Coney Island. We thought it'd be fun to go to Coney Island. We went out there. Coney Island there's an island off Brooklyn. It may not even be an island. I presume it is because it's called an island. And I saw 2 kids playing on the beach, and one walked over and grabbed a plastic trash bag out of the water and threw it on the other kid's head. And oh, they were having so much fun playing with the plastic trash bag. I'm from Pensacola, Florida. They have very nice beaches there. I'm kind of spoiled. But I'm sure there must be some nice beach somewhere up along the East Coast. I just have not gone. I don't go to the beach too often. I don't have a whole lot of leisure time. One thing I found, I was talking to one of my business advisors yesterday, is that having a child forces you to have a more strict regimen, which it's obvious, it makes common sense. But inevitably, that takes away a lot of your free time. And free time is going to the beach by yourself for fun. How's James doing? He's sick. He's 21 months old. At what age did you get interested in poker? When I was 17. When are you going to be playing cards in LA? Probably no time soon. In LA, the only time I used to go was in February for the LAPC and for whatever other tournaments they have in the California area during then. But I'm having a baby in December, so I'm not going anywhere in February. Therefore, I am not going to go to LA this year. Do you play online poker full-time? Absolutely not. Come to Long Beach and Long Island. It's only 35 minutes away from Manhattan. So maybe Long Beach is nice. When was peak of your poker career? I don't know what that means. And what was I doing at the time no one else was doing? I suppose whenever I was running the hottest, I was playing very aggressively, and I was playing the biggest games that existed at the time. I was talking to Jonathan Jaffe, a very, very good heads-up player, about this. We played heads-up for WPT Foxwoods. Let me get the trophy. I'm probably going to knock everything over. Okay, this may or may not work. All right, I think I did it. Here's the trophy for WPT Foxwoods. This is why we're here. As you can see, it says Jonathan. Oh, does it say Jonathan Little? No, I just think it says champion. Oh, no, just says $10,000 no limit champion. Jonathan Jaffe very, very good heads-up players who I got heads up with. It's always nice to get heads up against a world-class player. I have been unlucky in that every time I got heads up in a big tournament, it has been against a really good player. Luckily, I'm 2-3 though. So 2-4-3. Jonathan Jaffe told me just like probably a year ago at a WPT party that whenever we played, looking back, he said I was absolutely crushing him. And he said, this thing comes off. This is a globe. It's called the World Poker Finals, so they give you a world. He told me that I was playing very aggressively whenever he raised. I would jam all in. We played for like 8 hours straight. We eventually got to where we were playing very shallow stack. And he said with the shallow stacks, I was just slaughtering him because he would open 90% of hands, I would jam, and then he would only call with like top 15% of hands. And if you do that over and over and over, you're going to crush the guy. And he said that he did not think that I was going to be jamming that wide. And he also didn't understand back then how wide he should be calling at someone who's just maniacal. I learned to play this way from sit and goes. Whenever I used to play sit and goes, we did a few studies, me and a few of my friends. Studies, we call it a study when we just play 1,000 games and see what happens. We played 1,000 games where we would just open jam every hand from the button for 10 big blinds. And then we would play Nash Equilibrium, jam or fold strategy. We would both play 1,000 games this way. Turns out we both won way more money when we open shoved 100% of hands as opposed to when we played Nash. So we're exploiting the player pool tendencies by doing what? Well, we're shoving 100% because people fold too much. I'm going to put this down. It's very heavy. Probably weighs 10 pounds. Okay, fine. So we know this is obviously better. Next, what do? We wanted to experiment and see whenever someone raises, can we jam on them very wide? Sure enough, you could. They jam, or they raise, you jam 20 big blinds, they fold too much. And that's exactly how I learned to play poker, or No Limit Hold'em heads up. I thought it was good. And back in the day, it was good. It was very, very good. And that's what I was doing. So, what was I doing back in the day to win? I understood that aggression was very important, and I understood that people did not defend often enough. All right, let's see. Can I recommend a heads-up book? There is a book called... let me Google it so I get this right. It's a very good book. It's the Bible for all top players in the world. It's by a guy named Will Tipton. It's called Expert Heads Up No Limit Hold'em. Optimal and Exploitative Strategies. There it is. Go get it. It is a hard book. It's full of math, full of numbers. Not a particularly fun read. But it's what all the best players in the world swear by. If you ask people like Isaac Haxton what they read, he will say, that book. 2 volumes, volume 1 and volume 2. He actually wrote with me in Excelling at No Limit Hold'em because I love the books a lot too. What would I recommend if you haven't cashed in your last 15 tournaments? Doesn't matter, but you're playing cash 4 times a week and 3 out of 4 times you're up. Well, play cash games or just realize that you haven't played very many games. I look like the actor Ewan McGregor. Teach us Obi-Wan. I don't even know what to say about that. I don't think I do. Louis Philippe says, is that true today? Can you still just jam on people wide and they'll fold? If they haven't studied, absolutely. If they have not studied, you can jam wide and you will crush them. That's how I would probably default to playing against most people who were obviously recreational. I would just play bonkersly aggressive, unless I thought they were calling stations, right? If you think they're calling stations, then you don't want to do that. Back then, I realized Jonathan Jaffe was like the king of the $5,000 heads-up games. So, let's think about this, another concept. Here I am. I'm a good tournament player. I have good results. I'm playing against this guy who I don't really know, but I did find out he's the biggest winner or one of the biggest winners in heads-up sit and goes. We're playing heads-up for $500,000. What should we do? Well, this guy is probably very good at post-flop play, presumably. Just my assumption. Probably better than me. It's very important to understand you're not the best. I realized, this is me after winning a WPT and final tabling a few others, this opponent, who I don't really even know, is almost certainly better than me at what we're doing. Fine. Okay, we know this now. What do? You want to jack up the variance. How do we jack up the variance? By making the opponent go all in frequently. How does he keep the variance low? Well, he wants to see lots and lots of flops. Fine. He wants to see lots of flops. How do I make him not see flops? You jam all in. Or you 3-bet him a ton. And that's exactly what I did, right? And it worked out well. So, you need to figure out... You have to understand that you are probably not the best sometimes, and you need to figure out your strategy and adjust accordingly. And we end up with this heavy crystal ball because of it. Because, right? Because we understood what we needed to do. He wanted to see flops. So make the flops expensive. He wanted to play post-flop. Don't play post-flop, right? That is where he has an edge. So you play to people's weaknesses, not their strength. And also, I'm sure it wasn't even like a weakness in his mind. He was just, or even maybe it's not a weakness. And, for all we know, remember, this was, 10 years ago. For all we know, he was just playing perfectly fine. He just never got a calling hand, right? He could have certainly started open limping. That would have definitely been a good adjustment, because then you can't jam for 25 big blinds when the guy open limps. So when he min raises, you can jam 25 big blinds. So maybe there were adjustments he could have made. He could have just called off wider. But, he was trying, he thought he had an edge post flop, and I was extracting that. People are asking about the book. Expert Heads Up, No Limit Hold'em by Will Tipton, volume 1 and 2. What I think most poker players are transitioning to now that online poker is somewhat dead. Online poker is not dead. Don't know why you'd think that. But what are poker players transitioning to? Other things involving numbers, if they're number-oriented. Most good players are very number-oriented. Most poker players who are not so good are not so number-oriented. And they have to do different things. I don't know. You find what you can do. Take a few personality tests. Take a few job placement exams. Find your strengths, right? You want to play to your strengths when trying to find a career. You want to find something that naturally suits your personality. Where do I get coffee, and what method do I use to brew it? Today we're having pu'er tea. I poured in a little tea steeper thing. I put it on top of my cup. It all goes through the leaves, and I drink it. How do I make coffee? I use an AeroPress to make coffee. I think Tim Ferriss explains how he makes coffee, and that's the same way I make coffee with the AeroPress. Pu'er tea is kind of like coffee. It's very dark. If you can see it, please don't spill. See, it's very, very dark color. I think you all can see it. Maybe not. Let's see. I'm trying to wrap up these a little bit earlier because I can't go for a full hour every day. One thing I've learned is that whenever I sit here and do these little coffees for a whole hour, I usually need a little bit of unwind time. Today I have a coaching session at 10 a.m. One of my students wants to have a coaching session, so we're having a coaching session at 10, which is in 20 minutes. So I'm going to go from here in about 4 minutes. What's my favorite wine? Ooh, if I had to pick my absolute favorite, I like Frog's Leap Cabernet from Rutherford. The Rutherford Cabernet is probably my favorite, but I think it's because I have nostalgia attached to it. One of the first wineries I went to. I love the farm. They let you pick fruit from their garden, and you eat the fruit. And they grow it all old school style, or at least older school than most of the other places where they have all the fancy watering systems and whatnot. And I like that a lot. I was also just given some wine from one of my friends, and it's called Zeitgeist. I like the Zeitgeist wine a lot too. I like Cabernets. Cabernets from California are my favorite by a mile. And that's it. How do you test yourself and know your level of poker? You continuously play, right? You play a ton. Play a ton and keep trying to move up. If you're winning, you're winning. If you're not winning, you're not winning. Did I watch Poker After Dark? I don't watch a whole lot of poker. I would sounds a little bit crazy, but the way I actually consume high-stakes cash games is I outsource it. I pay a guy $20 an hour to write down the hand histories from all of the super high roller tournaments. He sends me the hand histories, and I can read through the hand history. It takes me like an hour to get through 10 hours of coverage that way. And then I can also just cut out the hands I want to discuss with my friends. And that's how I do it. Time is of the essence, you have to understand. I can't sit there and watch 8 hours of poker. It just doesn't work. And I definitely don't watch anything live. That's another thing. I always watch everything on replay, because on replay you can often speed it up to 1.5x or 2x speed, and you can also fast forward. One thing I'm missing using this method is often I'm not seeing all the tells, like physical tells that happen, but I kind of presume the physical tells are irrelevant for the good players, but maybe that's short-sighted. Jermaine says, thanks for the YouTube videos. That you're very, very welcome. What is my biggest vice? The Cabernet from California. Actually, I'm not going to have any Cabernet from California or any other wine or any other alcohol for the next month-ish. I think I was having too much over the last week or so. I was at home. I wasn't really getting a ton done. Anytime I see my productivity go down, I often find that I'm drinking too much. And I say too much as in like 2 or 3 glasses at night. Or maybe a glass for lunch. I'm definitely not a raging alcoholic or anything. But it's not... I mean, you ask my vice. I don't really have a whole lot of problems. But that is one of the problems. How do you apply for that job? It's already taken. You miss hands leading up to the hands. No, I see every hand. I see every hand history. I tell the guy to write down every single hand history. But I eventually clip the ones that are the most relevant. And, also when you're looking at good players, the previous hands don't matter all that much. It matters a lot more against bad players because they care about past history a lot more than the good players. And also, you have to understand, if you're playing against a lot of good players... Oops. Sorry. Coaching session's coming up. If you're playing against a lot of good players, what happens is, it's not just what happened in this session, it's what's happened over the last 2 years that you need to take into account. Like, you may see that a guy is a bit of a calling station on the river, let's say. But this session, he's folded 4 times on the river, but he's still a bit of a calling station, right? And if he's a bit of a calling station, and you know this, but he's folded 4 times today, it may look a little bit silly to make a thin value bet against him, given he just folds a lot, right? On this exact session. So understand this exact session is not always the most important thing. Give us a top secret strategy. Really not a whole lot of them. I put them all out there. I don't look like someone with low productivity to you. Well, it's all in who you compare yourself to. Vincent says, you read applications of No Limit Hold'em, and your win rate went down enormously as you played more GTO rather than exploitative against live players. You worry that expert No Limit Hold'em will do the same. Any thoughts on this? Yeah, I'll teach you good GTO poker. Although, if you read the title of Expert No Limit Hold'em, it is, the subtitle, it is Optimal and Exploitative Strategies. Also, there's really not a whole lot in the book about how to play specific hands, which I think is interesting. It's more about overall concepts. Also, I discuss this a lot, right? Understand, you need to do whatever makes sense against your opponents. You do not need to say, I'm going to be a GTO player, or I'm going to be an exploitative player. You need to learn to play fundamentally sound, so you know where to adjust back to when you do not know anything about your opponents, and or you don't know what your opponents do wrong. For example, in the high-stakes games, everyone does things that are wrong, but they're really hard to pinpoint. Because, let's say I continuation bet the flop a little bit too often. Let's say I'm supposed to continuation bet on average 70%, but I continuation bet 73%. No one's going to pick up on that. But if they play GTO, and I am playing slightly suboptimal GTO, they're going to win. However, in the low-stakes games, let's say we know a guy continuation bets way too much, he continuation bets 100%. Well, now we just adjust hard because it's obvious he's doing it, and it's very easy to exploit. So do not think that you have to say you are on one team or the other. I think a lot of people really like to say that they're on a team. I'm on team GTO or I'm on team exploitative, but you need to be on team play good poker. You remember me having some beef with Mason Malmuth. I don't really have any beef with anyone, but some people decide to have beef with me. It's a brief story. A long time ago, I presented my first book to Mason Malmuth and said, I think this would be a good book. Would you be willing to publish it? Because I like 2+2 books. They were good. I mean, they're now defunct for the most part because they only teach Limit Hold'em and whatnot. But back in the day, I presented it to him. He said, no, poker players can't write books because they don't know anything about writing. Fine. I presented it to D&B Poker. They snapped it up. It became a bestseller. And Mason got pissed because he missed out on lots of money. He made a bad decision. Now, or maybe he made a good decision. Maybe poker players on average can't write. And he just got unlucky on me. Fine. Fast forward a few years later. Everything I put out has been very tactical, very good and accurate for the most part. We put out some books on psychology. Mason is very, very mathematically oriented. If you've ever talked to the guy, he is the most bland, boring human you will meet. And he basically says that psychology does not matter. Speaking of beef, he said that if you eat something like 20 Big Macs before you play poker, you will play exactly the same poker as opposed to if you eat healthy before you play poker, which I think is not true. But in his mind, if you know the right play, you will always make the right play, and that's it. Because that's how a robot thinks, understandably, right? What he seems to not understand is that people think differently. And also, most of you all out there are not robots. I get this. I try to be like a robot whenever I'm playing. That's always the goal. And I think I do a pretty good job of it. But I also understand that that is not how most other humans think. It's very important to be able to look at the world from other people's minds and understand that some people, no matter what they do or what they understand, they will still not play like a robot. They're going to get pissed when their aces lose 4 times in a row. It's just going to happen. So, knowing that, how do we address that weakness, or maybe not even that weakness, that trait they have? Right? How do you adjust that? How do you adjust your game to take into account that issue? Whereas in Mason's mind, he's like, no, just play good. You know the right play, just do it. But it's not so easy for a lot of people. It's hard to just do it. Anyway, so he decided to latch onto the idea that he thought a lot of these psychology things were ridiculous. Another one is gratitude, right? I am probably not the expert on gratitude, but Dr. Tricia Cardner, who I wrote a book with, said, you need to be grateful for the things you have. It will make you generally a happier human and maybe a more productive human. Again, Mason thought that was ridiculous. Why would you ever need to be grateful? What good does that do? Things like this. So, it's like a robot talking to a human. And lots of people on 2+2 are blind followers of robots, which is why the site has significantly declined. It was so funny. They lost their podcast. I cannot. Here's a little bit of gossip. I don't talk about gossip much, but they lost their podcast. They had a good podcast. Actually, I never listened to it because they let people get on there and just say absurd things sometimes. But they had a podcast that was very popular. And I know that podcasts don't actually cost a lot to produce, right? Podcasts are cheap. But for some reason, they decided to no longer do their podcast. Maybe the people they had hosting it charged a lot of money or something. Maybe they lost their sponsor and it was no longer profitable. I mean, this is another example of a robot, right? A robot would say, okay, podcast now costs me $1,000 a week to make. Get rid of it. It's costing me $1,000 a week. Whereas a human would say, okay, this podcast is a loss leader, right? This podcast gets people to come to my site. This podcast builds goodwill, right? You're making a podcast. You're doing good work. Like this little coffee right here, right? No one pays me. I'm doing it completely for free. The goal, if there is a goal, is to make you all like me because I'm giving you good, actionable information. And if you like me, maybe you buy a book. Maybe you buy a video. Maybe you sign up to poker coaching. Or maybe I'm just giving back to the poker community because I like doing that, right? So, he probably had something that was losing money and he decided to cut out the thing that was losing money. Someone who is very personable, Daniel Negreanu, scooped it up. And now he took it. And now it's called DAT Poker Podcast, D-A-T. And, he scooped up one of their biggest assets. And, I don't know their arrangement. For all we know, Daniel's paying him $5,000 a week or whatever. He liked to give him back to the community and, they took their asset, they threw it in the garbage. 2+2 took their asset, threw it in the trash, and someone immediately scooped it up, as they should. It's just common sense. Mason did not like Dr. Cardner, and he decided to do some borderline illegal things, and they had to stop because the people on 2+2 are trolls. Troll under the bridge. You don't have to deal with trolls, fortunately, in life. What's the podcast called? DAT Poker Podcast. DAT Poker Podcast. All right, I have to go. No more gossip. We don't like gossip here. I have a coaching session today. Then I have a call with my marketing partners. Then I have a webinar for the Inner Circle. You can check that out at jlpoker.com, or no, pokercoaching.com/inner circle. What's today's topic? Oh, it's things to specifically pay attention to when you're transitioning from online to live in live poker that you may be missing. That's one of the topics, and there's another topic. I forget what it was. Racy Stacy says that podcasts take a lot of effort. They do take effort, but I mean, if you're a company and you are paying for the podcast, it takes you no effort. It just takes you money. And some people don't like spending money if they don't see an immediate return. They think, I'm having a podcast. Oh my God. It's really time to go. They think, I'm having a podcast, and the podcast needs to bring in advertisements to make money. Otherwise, it is a waste of my time. And that's the end of the thought process. And I think that's silly. All right. Have a good day. I'll see you all tomorrow at 9 a.m. Share this with your friends. Watch the replay. Talk to you later. Bye-bye. How do I end? I never know how to end on Instagram. All right. Goodbye, everyone, on all the other platforms. Have a great day. Thank you for being here. Holla, don't follow.